There is a new gospel that has kind of crept into the church over the last, 30, 40, 50 years. Some call it prosperity gospel. And it is based upon the assumption that God wants you happy. And I hate to break it to you, but that is not the case. It is not a top priority for us to be happy in God's eyes. And I don't even think it's on his radar that we be happy. That's not to say he wants us unhappy. It's not to say that we can't experience times of happiness. It's just not something that is, like I said, I think is on God's radar. I'm going to hopefully prove it to you in a second here. But I think the reason that a lot of the churches are promoting this is financial reasons. They make more money if they can sell you a bill of goods that says, you come to our house, our church, you'll be happy. We have the secret to happiness, to success, to prosperity, things like that. And again, that's just not something that is important to God. We are in a battle. Our life is a battle. And happiness is not something he's concerned about. Imagine, I know we've got some military people in here, and you go to boot camp, and your drill sergeant greets the new incoming class, and he says, guys, we've got 6 weeks together. We're going to do a lot of things, but the most important thing I want you to experience is happiness while you're here. I don't think anybody would take it very seriously, would they? No. And that's the way we have to look at it, is we're in a battle. Now, there is a Old Testament patriarch that I want to mention briefly to kind of explain my point a little clearer, and that is Jacob. Jacob had 12 sons. His 11th son, Joseph, was his favorite. We shouldn't have favorites as parents, but he did, and as a result of that, the other 10 sons, older 10 sons, became jealous. They caused him to be kidnapped, sold as a slave, and Joseph went into Egypt, wound up going into prison for doing the right thing, and when he went into Egypt, he was 17 years old. When he finally went into the service of the Pharaoh, he was 30 years old. That's 13 years of misery that he endured. But we don't often think of what Jacob went through during those 13 years. Imagine as a parent, most all of you are parents, imagine having a son that you loved very much and to live with the thought for 13 years that he was torn apart by a wild beast. Imagine the nightmares you would have, the times you would think about it. Jacob was not happy. And God allowed him to go through that 13-year period of thinking his son had been viciously torn apart by a lion or a pack of wild dogs or something. He allowed him to experience that. If God was concerned about his happiness, that wouldn't have happened. But then Joseph, even after he went into service with Pharaoh, they had 7 years of plenty, remember. So that takes that 13 years up to 20 years. And then they had 7 years of famine. And sometime during that 7 years of famine, his brothers came to him, and eventually his father found out he was still alive. But probably I'd say about another 5 years. So now we're up to like 25 years that Jacob thought that his son had been torn apart by wild beasts. And if God was concerned about Jacob's happiness, he would have whispered something to him. He would have gotten word to him. He would have let him know, Jacob, the son you love so much, was not killed. He's okay. But God didn't do that. He allowed Jacob to go through agonizing, terrible thoughts about his son for 25 years. God was not concerned about his happiness. He was concerned more, I believe, about his character. As I used to say to my children when they were young and they wanted something and they shouldn't get it, candy, whatever, I would tell them, I'm more concerned about your character than your comfort. And I think that's what God was concerned about. But why did he Why did he allow Jacob, and Joseph for that matter? On Joseph's side, he wanted to tell his dad he was still alive, and he couldn't. So both of them were suffering for 25 years. Why did God allow this length of time to go on and not give them some kind of peace, some kind of comfort? There's a reason, I believe. And I promised myself I wouldn't go over 5 minutes. What I'm going to do is continue this next time and give you the reason I believe. It's not in the Bible, this is my personal opinion, but I think it's pretty valid, why God would allow Jacob and Joseph to undergo almost torture for 25 years. There is a reason, and it is a reason that affects us today. It affects our lives. God is concerned more about our character. He wants us to recognize we are in a battle. So next week, I'll do part B and tell you why. And this gives you 7 days to think about why you think he would intentionally allow Jacob to undergo such torture, inner torture, for such a long period of time. So that's your homework for the next week. And then we'll finish up next week doing that.